Hi guys, my name is David, and I am the head of the distance learning department here at the 반포유학그룹. I'm proud to share that 97% of my students secure admission to at least one of their REACH schools. As I shared in part 1 of this video, I graduated from Johns Hopkins with a degree in economics. Today, I'm going to continue evaluating my own personal Johns Hopkins essays. In the last part, we focused on my Common App essay. In this part, we're going to be focusing on the 2 supplementary essays that helped me get into Johns Hopkins. And so first, we're going to be diving into my Why Major essay, and then we're going to be finishing up with the additional insight piece that Johns Hopkins asked when I applied. We're going to be evaluating my essays with the rubric that we use here at 반포유학그룹, with 3 categories, 1 being originality, 2 being engagement, and finally 3 being eloquence. Tune into the previous part to see how I evaluated my own Common App essay when I applied. Okay, without further ado, let's get into my first supplemental essay, the Why Major essay. So, if we read the prompt first, it says Johns Hopkins offers 50 majors across the schools of arts and sciences and engineering. On this application, we ask you to identify 1 or 2 that you might like to pursue here. Why did you choose the way you did? If you were undecided, why didn't you choose? Okay, so he starts here. I remember watching in anticipation for the minute hand on the clock in my living room to tick. So you can already see off the bat that I start this essay in sort of an unconventional way, right? So why would I be fixated on the time? The reader is curious, so they want to find out and read more. Time appeared to be nothing but a linear measure, a single immutable pathway. But after discovering Einstein's theory of relativity, my perception was greatly altered. No longer was time the fixed quantity. It became a curved, unpredictable, a living organism. Such a realization was hard to accept for a while. For so long, I believed time was an inherent aspect of our lives and the greater universe, when in actuality, it was nothing more than a measure we conjure up to make matters more convenient. All of a sudden, I found myself questioning time's relationship to the world. So you can see from the very start that I really show intellectual curiosity here, right? So I questioned the concept of time after I learned about the theory of relativity. It sort of made me think differently about the world around me and want to investigate more. And then the piece reads, after being exposed to the economic concept of opportunity cost, I began to see time in a new light. Every point in time splinters into an infinite number of decisions we can make, each leading to different amounts of money, to different careers, and even to completely different lives. And considering these endless possibilities, I've become curious about economics and its impact on every single second of our lives. As an economic major at Hopkins, taking classes such as microeconomic theory and the economics of uncertainty, I would have the opportunity to investigate the relationship between time and economic decision-making in tremendous depth, thereby satiating my curiosity. Okay, so let's start off with the things I think I did well here. So I think in terms of setting up the essay in an interesting manner, I think I did very well. In terms of talking about my intellectual curiosity, I think I did very well. But in terms of where I think I fell short, I don't think I necessarily talked about the relationship between time and economic decision-making as far as I could. And in terms of actually connecting this to Hopkins, the problem is, I mentioned something like microeconomic theory and the economics of uncertainty, but realistically, and I didn't know this at the time, obviously, any college you go to can offer these courses. So if I were to connect this to Johns Hopkins, I need to be more direct in terms of identifying unique aspects of Hopkins that would actually attract me to the economics program there, as opposed to any other economics program. And so in terms of talking also about like the concept of like opportunity cost and decision making, I could have investigated further in terms of reading papers, in terms of seeing what kind of research was being done on the subject to make it seem like it wasn't just like a preliminary interest, but something that I was actually really thoughtful about. And so evaluating my essay on the various categories, in terms of originality, I would give myself a 4. And so originality also includes the aspect of, in terms of like a why essay, also making sure that you provide some sort of original reason for wanting to attend the university. I really didn't do that necessarily here. In terms of connecting it to time, that's where the sort of the originality part was actually successful. And so for that reason, I would give myself a 4 to 5 with the originality aspect. In terms of engagement, I think that my essay was relatively engaging from beginning to end, and so I would give myself 5 for engagement. And in terms of eloquence, you can see that, again, I don't necessarily use that much complex vocabulary, but my sentence structure is very literary and sort of eloquent in terms of using not only just complex sentences, but parts like, for example, no longer was time to fixed quantity, it became curved, unpredictable living organism. So I think that I showed sort of how articulate I am in this essay, and also sort of talked about my intellectual curiosity, And so for that reason, I think it was a solid essay, but I could have improved in terms of connecting it more to Hopkins. Okay, and then moving on to the second essay here. So the prompt reads, tell us something about yourself or your interests that we wouldn't learn by looking at the rest of your application materials. And so, you have to be creative in terms of how you would actually answer this prompt. And for me, I took my essay from another supplement, and I felt that it was a good demonstration of exactly what the question was asking. And so my piece here reads, all my anger, all my sorrow, all my ecstasy, I can capture through playing my cello. The best part is, everyone around me may hear my sound, but not a single soul will have the faintest idea that it reflects how I am feeling. My feelings are not reflected in how I play, for I play with the style that the composer intended. I express myself rather by selecting a piece that relates to the way I feel. So again, this is sort of a self-expression essay, right? And so by simply documenting on my resume or my activities that I played the cello, I wouldn't have the opportunity to share that this was sort of a self-expression mechanism. And so here I say here, to cope with misery, I choose perhaps Fauré's Elegy. The piece's solemn minor key, coupled with the somber, slow melodies, evoke an atmosphere of suffering, trauma, and grief. By immersing myself in this atmosphere, I no longer feel trapped alone in my sorrows. I am comforted by knowing that I have the music surrounding and embracing me, sharing my pain, empathizing with me. To others, I am simply playing a song of mourning, but to me, I am releasing the pain from my body to an external place, the melodies with which they coincide, Fauré's composition. When I experience a moment of pure rapture, I may choose to play Dvorak's Cello Concerto. The piece's overpowering fortes, coupled with its upbeat melodies, conjure up an image of reaching the top of a seemingly insurmountable peak or solving a particularly difficult math problem. To others, I am simply playing Dvorak's uplifting melodies, but to me, I am projecting my euphoria into the room around me, and man, does it feel good. So, in terms of this essay itself, in terms of things that I did well, I think that I accurately and sort of eloquently explained how this was a form of self-expression for me to cope with various kinds of feelings, and I think that that was successful in itself. In terms of what I think I could have done better, so the idea of releasing emotions through an instrument, it's not necessarily that innovative, and it does show a part of me, but it doesn't really get into the core of who I am as a person, in my opinion. So for the originality aspect, I would give myself 4. For the engagement aspect, I think it's pretty predictable what I'm talking about from start to finish. I sort of encapsulate what I wanted to say from the first sentence. And so because of this predictableness of the entire essay, if I were the one reading this essay, I don't know whether I would want to even read from start to finish. And so on the engagement side, I would actually give myself a 3. However, on the eloquent side, I think that this essay also testifies to the strength of my writing. In terms of, if you look at, sentences like, but to me, I'm releasing the pain from my body to an external place, the melodies with which they coincide, Fauré's composition. I think, again, it testifies to the power of, by sentence quality. And from the eloquent standpoint, I think that I do well. But in general, I think this essay also had, areas of improvement. By no means can you see that both of my supplements were perfect. There are a lot of things that could have been fixed. Now, also talk about is the fact that I'm looking at my essays, 10 years later after applying. And so hindsight is 20/20, obviously, and I see areas of improvement now that I can make. But given this experience, given the fact that I went through the admission cycles, got rejected and accepted, I really know what it takes to write a good essay now. So if you're looking for personalized essay assistance, don't hesitate to reach out to the 반포유학그룹. Thanks again for watching. I look forward to connecting with you soon. See you at the next video.